Good morning, everyone. Any question? So I uploaded homework 2, you can see here in LC, and this is the relevant data. So homework 2 is based on the multiple linear regressions only. And if you see here in the table, this is the table that I uploaded here for the PRE and the F table. As I told you that I will upload the table, so I uploaded here, and today I will go over this table with class question that we did last time from chapter 6, and I showed you that, okay, you have to look at this table. So I realized that maybe I need to go over one more time to show you how to look the values in the table. At that time we don't have that table. So here if you see, I uploaded 4 tables. So this is called the PRE, critical values for PRE when the PA minus PC equal to 1. Okay? And N minus PA, we have the different values here, you can see in the first column. And this is our alpha values. So in other words, we call it the P values if we look at the PRE in this side. Now another table that we have here, this table we used a lot already. Many times we use this table. I showed you how to look up for the values. If you have any questions, you can stop me here. Otherwise, I will show you how to use this table. So this is when we have PA minus PC can be more than 1, especially 3, 2, 3, 4, whatever. And N minus PA is fixed. So our alpha, which is the significance level, fixed. Alpha is 5%. We call it the type 1 error. And this is our critical value. So let's open these class questions. If you remember, this was from chapter 6. If you remember the Medicorp sales data set. Okay. Can you open this data for me in JUMP? So we have this data already, and we worked on this data. So this is our data set. You can see that if you remember, in this data we have 25 observations. Our response variable here is the sales, and we would like to predict the sales based on the advertising, bonus, market share, and competition. So we have 4 variables. Now I am not going over all the questions. I am going over the questions that we are going to use the PRE. So this was our first questions, that means question 5. I ask you, regardless of your result in question 4, suppose the management of Medicorp believes that in addition to advertising and bonus, the 2 other explanatory variables may be important in explaining the variation in sales. So what are the compact and the augmented model for this? And define all the terms. So this is what we already know that we discussed in class. So compact model is this one. And our compact model here, if you look at this, so our compact model is not a simple model. Compact model already have 3 parameters. Simple model means we have only 1 parameter, which is a constant term. But in this case, our compact model is not a simple model. So we have 3 parameters in the compact model, and the augmented model we are adding 2 more explanatory variables. So in total we have 5 parameters. Okay, and you just need to define. I already explained this term, what is the beta 0, beta 1, beta 2, beta 3, and beta 4. You already know this part. Now this is the most important part, that we are going to use what is called the table, because we want to conduct the model comparison that you outlined in question 5. Make a valid conclusion, find the PRE, interpret it. So these are the questions. Now to make a valid conclusions, we need to know what is our null hypothesis and what is our alternative hypothesis in this case. Do you think that our null hypothesis is all 4 parameters? No. Because we are only adding 2 more additional explanatory variables, and we want to see whether these 2 explanatory variables are making any significant reduction in error, in addition to the 2 that we have already in our model. In addition to advertising and bonus, whether market competitions and market shares make an additional reduction in error. That means whether these two variables are making a significant reduction in error. So how can we know that whether these two are making a significant reduction in error? We know that we have to calculate our PRE and F, both. Now, our null hypothesis here is that beta 3 and beta 4, both of them are 0. We are not including beta 1 and beta 2 because this is our simple model, compact model in this case. So we are adding these two, and I said at least one of betas is not equal to 0. So at least one of betas means beta 3 and beta 4. Now, let's fit this model first. Okay? Please stop me if you have any questions, those who are online. Okay? So, we are fitting the model. What is our response variable in this case? Sales. So we drag these sales in the Y column box, and we are now adding 4 different variables. So you can select all together, like if you just press the control button and then click add. So you are fitting a model with 4 different variables. Okay, so let's run this one. Now the question is that, do you think this is our F test result? These are F test statistics or not? No. These F test statistics, this is the most important part. This F test statistics is for simple versus the whole model with 4 parameters. So this F test statistics is the null hypothesis will be like this. Let me share the screen with the whiteboard. Maybe. So in this case our beta 0, H0 in this case is this. Beta 1 equal to beta 2 equal to beta 3 equal to beta 4. And our alternative is at least one beta is not equal to 0. One beta is not equal to 0. So this is our F test result from this one. Now the question is that, are we going to do this test? No. So this is called the overall model test, this F ratio. But in our case, our null hypothesis is different. That clear what I am saying here? Now the question is that, how can we get our F ratio for our case? This is the overall model with all these 4 parameters. But in our case, we are not looking for this one. So you have to understand this part. So we can make it clear maybe. Okay, now let's go back to our questions here. So first of all, we need to look at our PRE. So PRE is sum squares of the error for the compact model, sum squares of the error for the augmented model, sum squares for the error. Now this one you have to calculate it. JAMP will not give you unless you are using the simple model. But we are not using simple model, so you have to calculate it. That means you have to fit model twice. So this sum squares of the error for the augmented model is the one. This is the error, and you can see I put this error. What about the sum square error for the compact model? That means you have to fit a model with only 2 predictors. And we already did it, but I am showing you one more time here. When you just feed the simple model, I mean the model with the 2 predictors. So this is your sum squares of the error for the compact model in this case. So 18122.6, and you can see here 18122.6. This is our sum-scarcity error for the augmented model, that means this model, and divided by the sum-scarcity error, and based on these calculations we get our PRE is 0.0488. So we can see only 4% reduction in error. Is it a good reduction? No. But still, we cannot say whether it is significant reduction or not unless we check it carefully from our table. Okay? Now, we need to find out what is PA minus PC, so we get this is 2 and PA minus N minus PA is 20 because we have 5 parameters and 25 observations, so we get 20. Now, to calculate the F value for this model, we have to use this one. And this is from your book. If you look at your books in chapter 6, you will see that how they calculated the PRE. Chapter 6, if you just open the chapter 6, you will see here is the PDF copy of the books. This is the second edition because I didn't get the third edition, the PDF copy. But there are little bit changes, so if you want, then I can upload this one as well. But I want to make sure that notations, everything is same in the third edition, but I'm not sure. Please read the book when you have time because this has lot of examples with this type. Here are the multiple regressions, and you can see here they talked about the redundancy and as well this is the formula that we're going to use. Okay? So this is for F ratio when we have our compact model is not the simple one. Okay? So in this F, you can see that what is our numerator here? This is the PRE. PRE divided by PA minus PC. And what about the denominator? So PRE we know that calculate the reduction in error. When we add more explanatory variables in the model. 1 minus PRE is what? That this is just the one that we didn't include the predictors in our models. The rest of the predictors divided by N minus PA. So N is the total number of observations. So maximum we can add N predictors. So the rest of the predictors is N minus PA, okay? That we didn't include in our model. So we take the ratio of these two. So we look at this F ratio. So here, in our case, if you see, our PRE is given to us. So I use this PRE here. And PA minus PC is also given because this is, we have 2. N 1 minus PRE, I use 1 minus this value divided by N minus PA 20. And then I divide this one by this one and I end up with F is this one. Now you can see that this F and this F is totally different. So this F is for the overall model that I just showed you. But this one is for when we are adding 2 more additional parameters and we are calculating the F ratio. Now the question is that how can I make a conclusion that whether there is a significant improvement in our models by adding these 2 parameters. So we need to look at for the PRE because this is PA minus PC is 2, so we need to go back to this table. So where figure A2, which is the table A2 you can say, where we have PA minus PC is 2, so we select this column. Okay? Now N minus PA, what is our N minus PA? 20. Now what is the corresponding critical value? 0.259. Okay? Now what is our PRE? Which is much less than this. So that means they are not exceeding this critical value. That means they are in the non-rejection region. We cannot reject our null hypothesis. The reason is that here you can say, so critical value is point here in this case this one. This is our critical value. And our PRE is if I just write up to 2 decimal places here 0.04 I think. Now this value is much lower than this. This is not exceeding this value. That means they are lower than our critical value. So if it is lower than critical value, we cannot reject the null hypothesis. So this means insignificant. That idea is clear? Okay, so let's go back. So you can see our PRE is 0.0488 and we get our critical value of the PRE is 0.259, which is much, this PRE is much lower than the critical value. That means that falls in the non-rejection region. So we cannot reject the null hypothesis. Any questions, please stop me. Now the next one, we get our F value, which is this one. Now we go to the table. Which table we should look for? Again, we go to the critical value for the F, not this one, because here PA minus PC equal to 1. So we go to the table F4, PA minus PC is 2, okay? L minus PA is 20. What is our critical value? 3.49. Here you can see this is 3.49. Okay, what is our F value? 0.05 something. Okay, now again our F value is much lower than the critical value, so we cannot reject the null hypothesis. So there was question that can we get the contradictory results? That means F says whether it is significant, our PRE says is not. No, both should give you the same conclusions. And the reason for showing this one, because I asked some questions like this in your homework. So you need to carefully do it when we are answering these questions. How to look for this table, how to answer these questions.
And
Yes, sir.
Why can't we take the F value that's given to us in the analysis of variance?
Okay, that's what I just explained, but I can go over one more time. Okay, so let's close this and go back to, so this is our F value, okay? So your question was that why we cannot take this one. So this is what I said, that our, in this case, F is the overall test. So null hypothesis in this case is this, beta 1 equal to beta 2 equal to beta 3 equal to beta 4. Okay, so overall test. So that means they are comparing the simple model against the whole compact model.
Oh, okay.
But in our case, it's not the case. In our case, it is just our compact model already include 3 parameters. So that's why you cannot use this separation. But that's a very important thing. Thank you for asking. Now, if you are just comparing the simple model with the augmented model, then you can get PRE. That's why we always say that you can get PRE directly from the jump output as well as the F test statistic. But if your compact model is different, it's not simple one, not a constant value, it's more than 1 parameters. That means you are including more predictors in your compact model. Then your F is not this one, your PRE is just not this one. Make sense? Okay. Okay. Now I will upload this one after the class with the detailed solution that I put it here. That now looking at either PRE or DF tables with this and that, we can see that we have a p-value that is greater than this, because we are not going to reject, that means our p-value is greater than this. So we don't reject the null hypothesis, that means we have insufficient evidence that there is significant improvement in predicting sales over a model that only uses advertising and bonus. Okay? So you can see that multiple regression model where we are comparing whether adding a predictor is useful or not. But in chapter 7 we learned that, okay, if adding a predictor, changing the value of one predictor has an effect on the relationship between the predictor and the response variable. That's the two different things from this one. This is what we learned in chapter 7. Any other questions before I move into my today's lecture? And I showed that redundancy, how to check it, because you have to go to the fitting models here. So I will go back one more time because I also asked these questions. So this is our overall model that we fit. To check the redundancy, you go to this, you right click on what we say on the parameter estimates table, right click, okay? Now it will show you the table here, then from this drop down menu you choose the columns, okay? And from these columns you can choose the BIF. We could call it variance inflation factor, okay? BIF. Now BIF tells us whether there is any redundancy among the predictors. We know that redundancy means we are only considering whether there is a strong relationship among the predictors. Now how can we say that there is a strong relationship or not? Standard criterion is that this BIF can be either very close to 1 or it can be very high. Now if it is close to 1, that means there is no redundancy. But there is a rule of thumb that we are going to use in this course. We say that if BIS is more than 5, look at this, if BIS is more than 5, we are saying there is a moderate redundancy. But if it is higher than 10, there is a strong redundancy. But in our case, we can see all the BIF are very close to 1. So that does not show any sign of redundancy among the predictors. Now if I ask this type of questions in your homework, and I also asked you, then you have to calculate your BIF, which is very simple here. I am not going details the mathematical form, but as a non-major statistician people, like you guys, you need to know how to interpret this, how to get this value. Now if you are interested to know more mathematical term, you can come and see me. I can show you how we can calculate the BIF by using mathematical formula. But I am not going through these details here. Now this is our BIF. Now based on this BIF, we can see all the BIFs are less than 5. So there is no sign of redundancy because they are very close to 1. Okay? And that's why we can say here there is no redundancy. But in your homework or in your exams, if I ask you this question, maybe you can get some redundancy. You need to explain accordingly based on your output. Even when you are doing your project data analysis, you need to also be very careful about this part. When you are reading multiple regression or any other things that you have to know this part. Okay, so I say that there is no evidence of redundancy because all the BIS from the jump output is lower than 10. Okay. Now, which predictors are useful or significant here? So when we feed the regression models here, you can see for all these 4 predictors, so which one is significant? That means useful predictors, advertising and the bonus. The other 2 are not useful predictors. This is how we make a conclusion about whether which predictors are useful or not. You look at the parameter estimates table. to make a valid conclusions. Okay, that's all about our last, from chapter 6, because I uploaded homework based on this chapter, so you need to carefully understand, and I will also upload the solutions. I already did it in class, but I am going to upload it in ELC. Okay.
When you upload the chapter 6 question answer?
Yes, that's what I am saying. I will upload it after class. Okay. Now come back to our chapter 8. If you remember, this is a new chapter. We call it the ANOVA. And in this chapter, last class we learned that our predictor is no longer a continuous variable, which is just a categorical variable with some categories. It can be only 2 categories or it can be more than 2 categories. Okay? But in the last class we considered that there is only 2 categories, and we considered the salary data set. So what was the idea behind this ANOVA? In terms of the regression, we fit a model. Okay? Here we are also going to fit a model, but the interpretation is different. In regression we say that for an unit increase in X, what is the average value of Y? But in ANOVA we don't have unit increase because this is not a continuous variable. So we can say that if we move from one group to the other group, what is the change in our response variables? What is the average change in the response variables when we shift from one group to the other group? So at first in this lecture notes, we consider the salary data set, and I showed you that we can do it in t-test if we have 2 categories, and also we can do it in ANOVA. This is what I showed you in the last class. And in terms of the models, our compared model is same, yi equal to beta 0 plus epsilon I, which is very simple model. This is called a simple model. Now, I am going to use a contrast, and I explained what is contrast in the last class, if you remember. The contrast is called when the sum of the coefficient is 0. So we define the coefficients like this, if you remember. Here I consider the sex variables, and I said, okay, the sex is here male and female. We have 2 variables, and we define this one. The male is as numeric code, which is -1, and female numeric code, which is +1. If you remember, I defined this one. Can you see? Male -1, female +1. So I converted it into numeric code. So we call it the recoding the variables. And why I define like this? You can ask me why you define this one. Because I want to make a contrast. So what is contrast means here? If you take the sum of these 2, what are you gonna get? 0. So this is what we call it the contrast. Sum of the coefficient must be equal to 0. But there are infinite number of ways to create this contrast. You can say -5 to 5, this will be 0. -2 to 2, this will be 0. So we have infinite number of contrast. But idea behind this is that we want to make a contrast. So we make this contrast here. Okay. Now here I said, if you look at this, so we said that when x equal to -1, and we define this one as x now. Now we said that, okay, this one is now x variable. Instead of x, I am saying this is x. Because this is a new variable that we define. So we define it as x in a symbol. Now, my augmented model, I am saying here, this x is actually -1 and 1. So I am just saying that, okay, so this is my augmented model where beta 0 plus beta 1 x, where x has 2 values, -1 and 1. So -1 means if we plug in the -1 here, what's going to happen here? Our predicted response will be less than a constant mean, because it is less than because if you plug in here, for example, if you plug in -1 in this case, so you're going to say the y bar, if you fit a model, so it is just is beta 0 minus beta 1 bar. Is that right? Because we are taking the average. Or if you just say, okay, if you don't want to write y bar here, you can just say, okay, I don't want to write y bar here. You can just say y hat. You already know this one. This one we can say either beta 0 hat or you can say b0 hat and x. Okay, so that means this is the predicted response which is below the constant mean, because this we are subtracting minus when x equal to negative 1. But when x equal to positive 1, you're gonna end up with this one. Y hat is beta 0 hat plus, sorry for my drawing, plus beta 1 hat x. So this one I say that our predicted response is a constant mean above the ground mean. So last class you asked me what is ground mean. I showed you that ground mean when the value of x is 0, what is the predicted value of y, which is beta 0, which is called the ground mean. Just a constant value. Okay? So this beta 0 we can estimate it if we take the average values of all these values, which we learned actually from chapter 1 to 4 when I was reviewing. If you remember that I showed you Husky's data set with 7 or 8 observation, I showed you that constant value is just a sample average. So which is the ground mean actually. Any questions so far? You guys are good? Okay? Now, if you have no questions, so let me just remove this one to make it okay. Now I said that B1 is the half of the difference between these two, and actually it is half of the difference between the two groups. So how can we see that? If you look at this data, and which is very simple. So look at our salaries data that we considered here. So open the salary data set. In our last class, we actually have this data set. So this is called the salaries data, and everyone has this data in ERC. So what is our response variable in this one? In this case, salary. What is our salary here? This one. Okay? And what is our predictors here? Sex. Now what we have to do is this sex is recorded? No. It's just considered male and the females. What we assign this on as male as -1 and female as 1. So we need to reassign these values. Okay? So you can record this on and you can say give any name. Okay? Or you can just, if you want to just substitute this one, you can say in place. Then male is -1, so you put here -1. Female is +1, so you can say here +1. Sorry. Okay, so you can see that JAMP automatically record it, and since I put in place means you just want to, you are not creating new column. Okay, you are just replacing the original column with this recorded variables. And you can see that this is recorded with -1 and 1. Now we know what is 1 and -1 because we already recorded. Now you are going to fit a regression models. Okay, so you can just use the fit model. Now, another important thing that when you record it, now this recording is now numeric. So you can change this variables type to character to numeric, so you just put it numeric and continuous. Because this is a numeric coding, so we just put the type is numeric. Now fit the model based on these two. So salary, sorry, not the sex, so the salary. So what is our salary? SL is our salary. We drag this into the Y column box, and SX is the sex. So we drag this into the construct model effects and run the models. Yes, let me see what the question. Where did you go to change it to numeric? Okay. Thank you, Anna, for asking me questions. So I go back here. When you want to change the variable types, you select this column. So you can see I already selected this column. You can just put the cursor here and click, and then right click on this column here, and you can see there is an option, so we call it the column info. Now the column info, before this it was character and nominal at the beginning. Now I want to change it in the numeric, so I just say select numeric and change the nominal to continuous. And then you can see this becomes continuous. And how to know which one is continuous? In the jump, you can see beside each variable whether it is a triangle or the bar. If it is bar, that means it's a categorical variable. If it is triangle, it's a continuous. That's what the whole idea. So let me see what another question. Isn't this a categorical variable? Yes, Priyanka. Thank you for asking for a clarification. Yes, it is a categorical variable. But we give a numeric coding, so I am just telling that jump, treat it as just continuous. But it's still numeric, categorical, and it will be a categorical variables. But numeric coding we give, so we just change the type. But why you are changing it to continuous type? That's what I am saying. So I just change it because we give this as a numeric coding, so we just considering it a continuous. But it's not a continuous, it's the same interpretation as the categorical variables. Any other questions? Okay, now so we get this one, parameter estimates this one, but this is for these continuous variables, okay? Now if you go back to categorical variables, because because this is what I will show you in the when we have multiple categories. But two categories, I will show you that why we can just see the differences. So let's go and change it to the categorical variables. Okay. Type is nominal and feed the models with SL and sex. So you can see now I am considering it's a categorical variables. So you can see the differences. Can you see the difference, anything in these two? What is the other output? Did I delete the other output or not? Okay, maybe when I change it to the continuous, I remove the output. Okay, I wanted to show you, do you see any differences or not? Okay, fit the models with SL and SX. So we're going to fitting two models. Okay, so this is for the continuous one, and this is for the categorical one. Do you see any differences in the output? No. So that's why we don't have any issue with this one. No matter whether you are considering, still jump is just changing the type, jump is not changing any output and the sum. So this is what I just wanted to show you. Okay, now let's go back, and if you okay, so we already have seen this output here last time, and I showed you that okay, our t-test is not significant, our f is not significant because p-value is higher than 0.05. Okay, now this tells us that there is not sufficient evidence that the sex has an effect on the professor's salary. That means knowing that whether a professor is male or female does not change their salaries. So this is the whole interpretation of this ANOVA. But this is what we learned in the last class, which is very simple. Only when categorical variable has only two categories. Now consider if we have more than two categories. For example, we are considering to know whether there is a change in the salaries based on the ranks. Like for the tenure track position, we know that there is a assistant professor, then associate, then full professors. Okay? But if we add another two, we can get lecturers and the adjunct professors, sometimes the instructors. We can have many categories. Now, from the perspective, we know already that, okay, definitely there should be a different scale of the salaries for the different rankings. This is what we already know. That means the salaries for every group should be different. But we want to check it statistically based on our salary data set. Okay? Now, instead of two groups, now we have more than two groups. So we can compare each level with the others. We can say associate versus full professor, or assistant versus full professor, or we can say assistant versus associate. So we can have only three comparisons. Okay? So that means we have more than two groups. Because we have three categories, so 3 choose 2, which is actually, we can get here this. Now, 3 tests. See, 3 choose 2 is only 3 tests. Okay? Maximum we can get 3 comparison. Is that clear? Now, if we add two more categories like lecturer and adjunct professor, then we have 5 categories. Then we can do the 10 test, 10 pairs of the test. You understand? Okay, so let's go. How many tests we did here? Maximum 3. Is that clear? Now if we have 5 more categories, if I say lecturer, I'll just say L and A. A means ADJ adjunct. Now total number of comparisons we can say out of 5 we are making comparison for each pair. So 5 choose 2. These symbols we say that 5 choose 2. So 5 choose 2, that means the total we can get 10 tests. So for example, you can say, we already have these 3, we can say assistant versus lecturer, assistant versus adjunct, then associate versus lecturer, associate versus adjunct, and then maybe full professor versus lecturer, full professor versus adjunct. So we can have 10 total tests. Now if you have more categories, we have to do more tests. Now the question is that, how can we do this? So this is the first part that we have to know. Okay. Now, however, we have to consider the implications of many tests on our error rate, whether our error rate is 5% or more. Now in every statistical hypothesis testing, so we call it every HT, which is hypothesis testing, is conducted at some specified significance level. If you remember, we always say 5%. So we assign that there is a 5% chance that we can make some error. So we fixed it for every test. That's the important thing, that every test we fix that our 5% chance that we can make a wrong decisions. That when the null hypothesis is really true, but we are rejecting. So this is a wrong decisions. And we say that maximum we can allow that we are making 5% wrong decisions, but 95% we are okay in our conclusions. Now if we do multiple tests, each of these tests should have their own rate, which is 5% for each of these. Now for examples, so for examples I said that, okay, out of, like say in our case, if we just consider the three groups, so we are doing the 3 versus 3 choose 2, which is only 3 tests. Now each test has 5% error. Now if we say that we are making at least one error out of these 3 tests, what is the chance there? What will be the chance of making this error? Do you get my point? We have 3 tests, okay? Now each test we are saying that there is a chance of making error is 5%. Now we don't know which test we can make error. Maybe we will not make error for any of these. But we want to know what is the chance to make at least one error out of these 3 tests. Is that clear? Now this is what I am finding. So for each test our error rate is 0.005. Now I am finding the chance that making at least one error, we call it type 1 error, but you just keep in mind this is 0.5%, 0.05%. So we can just write it down 1 minus there is no error. So if we don't make any error, that means for each test our chance of not making error is 0.95. Because 5% chance of making error, so for not making error is 0.95. So since we have 3 tests of 0.95 times 0.95 times 0.95, so that's how you get 0.95 to the power 3. And this one is not necessary, you don't need to write 0.005 because this 0.005 to the power 0 is 1. Make sense? Now you can see that probability or the chance of making at least one error is very high, which is 0.143. Now, let's say if we make 10 errors, if we do the 10 test, if we say that if we do the 10 test like this one, so what will be the chance of making one error? 0.95 to the power 10, which will be much higher, and you can see this is 0.401. So if we do more tests, we can have more error. But we don't want to make our error more than 5%. But you can see at least making one error when we are conducting 10 tests or the 3 tests is much higher than 0.05. So that's the problem. We cannot do it in this way, just multiple comparisons. So what we have to do, we can just do the ANOVA. So that's why you can ask me why you cannot do the t-test here. The t-test we cannot do it because for each pair of the test, the chance of making at least one error is getting higher. When you are making more tests, your chance is getting much higher. But if you do the test with this percentage of error, nobody can accept your test. They're going to say you have higher rate of making error. How can we believe your hypothesis testing? Because we want to reduce our error. That's not our criterion. So that's the problem. But this problem can be resolved by using, we call it the PRANDF test. When we do the ANOVA, we look at the PRANDF test. Again, we come back to the PRANDF test for the ANOVA. Okay, so now our question is that, is there a difference among the associate, assistant and the full professor salary? These are our questions. So we have 3 categories. So our null hypothesis is that there is no difference in the average salary of these 3 rankings. So mu1 we say that average salary of assistant professors, mu2 is the average salary of associate professor, and mu3 is the average salary for the full professor in the whole population. So you denote mu1, mu2, mu3. So if we say they are all equal, that means there is no difference in the average salary. Alternative, we say that at least one mean is different, that means there is a difference in the salaries. Now look at this. Our compact model is simple one, and the augmented model is the one with 2 predictors. So you can ask me why we have 2 predictors. We have 3 levels, why we have 2 predictors? Because we are considering one as a baseline. So we have only 2, one is baseline. So we are considering, okay, we consider either full professor as a baseline one or assistant professor as a baseline one, it's up to you. So we have only two predictors. And I will explain this one because today I spent more time on reviewing some parts. So I will explain this one. In the next class, we're going to start from this part. And I'll show you how to make the contrast and everything. So again, I am requesting you, please read it before coming to the class. So you have some idea what I am going to do. Instead of just learning in the class is better, you can look at this. So thank you for your time. Any questions so far? Okay, let me see. No, okay. Are we going to do a chapter 7 questions? Yes, I will upload some questions for the chapter 7 for the class questions, and I'll make a solution as well for the chapter 7 questions, but you can go over the solution, and if you have questions, then we can do it in class. Okay, any other questions, or I can end the meeting? No questions, okay.